years has become known as the Dal Village. Once home to around 300 people, its population has plummeted to around 35. But a tradition that began in the early 2000s has now made it a strange tourist attraction in its own right. Tsukimi Ayano's family had left the area when she was young, but returned to look after her father when he fell ill. To pass the time, she decided to make a doll in his image that she placed in one of the fields. And she didn't stop there. She has gone on to make hundreds of them. Some that represent villagers that have moved away or died, others that are effigies or visitors or completely made-up people. There are now at least 400 of them throughout the village, the surrounding area, all of which are positioned in lifelike poses. She's now not the only one who makes the dolls, with school children joining in and other remaining residents too. Boating at the Iguazu Falls. On the border between the Argentine province of Misiones and the Brazilian state of Parana is one of the most beautiful geographical formations in the world, the Iguazu Falls. According to legend, they were the result of a vengeful god slicing the river in half. You can see why people have believed this to be the case. It's where the Iguazu River passes over an area of soft bedrock, and the way it's carved its way through over the centuries now means that depending on the water flow, there could be as many as 300 distinct waterfalls in the region. As much as half of the water flows through a particularly treacherous area known as the Devil's Throat, which is a particular highlight for tourists who can walk along a trail right alongside it to take in the power of the falls for themselves. Those who want a more extreme experience, however, can take an inflatable jet boat tour, which takes them perilously close to the cascading waters. These tours are very popular because of the unparalleled views you get of the place, obviously come with inherent risk. Passengers will undoubtedly get soaked, but there have been instances where the boats have capsized, and even one that vanished without a trace. It's one of the scariest boat rides you can take in the world, but surely one that's worth the risk of tough materials. Regions around China have begun installing a brand new type of tourist attraction, glass bridges that are completely see-through. There are now thought to be at least 2,300 of them in China alone. The one that stands out above the rest is the Zhangjiajia Grand Canyon Glass Bridge. Stretching between two mountain cliffs in the National Forest Park, the 1,410-foot-long structure was the biggest glass bridge in the world when it opened in 2016, and is suspended 980 feet above the valley floor beneath. It's made up of a metal frame upon which 120 glass panels were placed, each of which is 3 layers thick of 2-inch tempered glass. Even though the rules of physics mean the bridge should be safe, there have been several safety concerns about the design. It was closed just 2 weeks after the grand opening because so many people arrived to see it for themselves that it couldn't handle the loads. Having been designed to hold 800 people at a time and accommodate 8,000 visitors a day, more than 10 times the number were showing up, and urgent adaptations had to be made. If you're not scared enough just by walking over the bridge, then operators have some tricks up their sleeves to make sure it's a day you'll remember. There's a harness swing attached to the bottom of it for thrill seekers, and there are employees whose only job it is to walk along the bridge with a sledgehammer and smash some of the glass so the top layer visibly cracks beneath people's feet. Steel Dragon 2000 is a steel roller coaster at the Nagashima Spa Land in the Mie Prefecture of Japan. When it opened at the turn of the century, it broke a number of records, and to this day it remains the longest steel roller coaster in the world, with a length of 8,133 feet. The track has a maximum height of 318 feet, with a drop of 307 feet, and trains can reach a top speed of 95 miles per hour, which makes it one of the fastest lift hill coasters on Earth. Beyond the usual thrills of helixes, hills, and sweeping turns, there are 2 tunnels along the route, and is often cited as one of the most extreme coasters you can ride on. Incredibly, it cost more than $52 million to build, which is far more than most steel coasters. This is because far more steel was needed in its construction to ensure that it would be able to endure an earthquake. And this is an ever-present danger if you do go on the ride. There have also been several accidents since it first opened, including one where a train lost a wheel and detached from the track, meaning you could be taking much more of a risk by riding this coaster than you would be with any other. EdgeWalk. At 1,815 feet high, the CN Tower in Toronto, Canada, is the tallest observation tower in North America, and after opening in 1976, had given millions of tourists a unique view out across the city, and one that tests their nerves. Of course, within the safety of the structure, only the worst vertigo sufferers face too many difficulties. But in 2011, a new attraction opened that would change all that, called the EdgeWalk. Those who are brave enough can walk on the roof of the main pod of the tower at a height of 1,168 feet, attached by a harness. There's a 5-foot wide metal floor around the perimeter, and you can walk hands-free around it all. There's just enough slack in the cables for people to lean over the edge in an experience that really challenges you to trust the equipment. Unsurprisingly, EdgeWalk is only open during certain times of the year during calm weather, because the tower is often subjected to strong storms and covered in ice, which would make it far too dangerous, even with a safety harness. It's now become one of the most popular attractions in the city, and definitely one of the scariest things you can do there. Huanshan is one of the 5 great mountains of China, and has long been the site of religious significance. With 5 peaks, it reaches a maximum height of 7,070 feet above sea level, and there are a number of temples and structures over its slopes that attract visitors. If you want to climb the mountain, you can, but you'll be in for a terrifying experience along what is often described as the most dangerous hike in the world. There are narrow pathways, a frightening walk along a steep cliff on wooden planks without safety harnesses, and unpredictable weather patterns that can reduce visibility and cover the area in water within just a few minutes' warning. With increased tourism to the area and reports of fatal accidents, authorities have worked to improve the overall safety of the hike. They have cut wider pathways, built stone staircases, and added railings on the most dangerous parts, but even so, you take your life into your own hands by beginning the ascent. Of course, if you want to see what there is at the top and don't want to take such a risk, you could just travel up by cable car instead. Increasingly radical as amusement parks compete to attract the world's thrill seekers. And in 2019, Canada's Wonderland in Ontario put itself on the map with the opening of the Yukon Striker. This 3,625-foot-long steel roller coaster reaches a maximum height of 223 feet, reaches a top speed of 81 miles per hour, and currently holds the records for being the tallest, longest, and fastest dive coaster in the world. It also has the most inversions of any dive coaster, the longest drop, and is the only one to have a full vertical loop. The ride begins by climbing the 223-foot lift hill. Once at the top, the train hangs over the edge of one of the 90-degree drop for a few seconds before plummeting 245 feet into an underwater tunnel where it reaches its top speed. Cars then shoot out of the tunnel into the world's largest Immelman loop before hitting a zero-G roll, a 360-degree vertical loop, and another Immelman loop. Following this is an airtime hill and a 360-degree helix section before slowly returning to the station. In total, the ride lasts for just 205 seconds, but it's so packed with elements that there's hardly a chance to catch your breath. The Yukon Striker immediately became the scariest and most thrilling dive coaster on Earth, and is one of the best steel coasters of any type, and it surely proves that there's still a long way left to go in terms of roller coaster designs, and the limits that can be pushed. It makes you wonder, what's coming next?
Tianmin Mountain cable car. Even though they've been used for decades to access difficult-to-reach mountainous regions, there's something about the way cable cars are suspended in the air solely by a thin wire that continues to scare and thrill tourists the world over. We know in our minds that it's a relatively safe way to travel, but in the moment, with such extreme heights involved, they manage to make even the most hardened of people cling for dear life. Without a doubt, the most frightening and stunning cable car experience anywhere in the world is at the Tianmin Mountain in China, where it takes passengers from the city center of Zhangjiajie to the air garden, which is on the 4,980-foot summit. At a length of 4.6 miles, it's the longest cable car in the world. It takes 28 minutes to complete the journey. This is one of the steepest cable car inclines you'll ever experience, at more than 30 degrees at points. Some of the most beautiful mountain scenery anywhere on Earth, and very little sign of human activity. You can't help but wonder quite what would happen if any of the machinery went wrong. As with all cable cars, this one is closed during high winds and unfavorable weather conditions. And if you just so happen to be on board when this happens, it's potentially a long wait before operations resume once more.